القصة هي قصة الملحيين السياسيين.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, and these are today's top stories. Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri adjourns the 29th presidential election session to October 21st due to a lack of quorum. Damascus confirms that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has requested military assistance from Russia. And the Saudi-led coalition says it has seized an Iranian fishing boat in the Arabian Sea loaded with weapons destined for rebels it is fighting in Yemen. Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri has adjourned the 29th presidential election session to October 21st, again due to a lack of quorum. Around 43 lawmakers arrived at the Assembly, while the legal quorum requires the presence of 86 lawmakers. Head of the Future Bloc Fouad Sanyoura said his party was seeking the election of a consensual president who could bring the Lebanese together, and added that any compromise should be done within the law. Officials are exerting efforts to reach a deal over the promotions of senior army officers, a key demand of the Free Patriotic Movement to revive the role of the parliament and the government. Future MP Ahmed Fatfat said FPM chief Michel Aoun's dictatorship will lead to nowhere, and lashed out at the March 8 allies for boycotting the elections. Health Minister Wael Abu Fahoud has announced the closure of 36 clinics and 47 medical laboratories operating without licenses across the country. During a news conference, the minister also sent out warnings to dairy companies Kandia, Tahneyel Farms and Masabki after tests of certain products were found to be unsafe for consumption. Separately, Abu Fahoud notified the Financial Prosecutor's Office of his approval over the latter's request to obtain permission to prosecute 9 doctors. France's first airstrike on ISIS in Syria has killed at least 30 jihadists, including 12 children soldiers, a monitoring group said on Wednesday. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says foreign ISIS fighters were also among the dead and that the strike had wounded around 20 people. The raid took place in Syria's eastern province of Deir ez-Zor, near the Abu Kamal border crossing used by ISIS to link the Syrian and Iraqi parts of its so-called caliphate. This comes as French President François Hollande said on Sunday that 6 French warplanes hit an ISIS training camp near Deir ez-Zor city, and that more strikes could follow in the coming weeks. It was France's first airstrike in Syria as part of the US-led coalition fighting the extremist group there and in Iraq. Damascus has confirmed that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has requested military assistance from Russia in a letter to President Vladimir Putin. The statement issued by the Syrian leader's office came after Russia's parliament approved a request from Putin to begin airstrikes in Syria. Moscow gave no details of the planned operation, but said it would be limited in time and would not include ground troops. The Kremlin's chief of staff, Sergei Ivanov, said Assad had appealed to Russia's leadership with a request for military aid. In Damascus, a military source welcomed the development as positive, saying it was the culmination of long-standing coordination between both countries. For weeks now, U.S. officials and other sources have reported a Russian military buildup in Syria, mostly in the coastal Latakia province, a stronghold of Assad's regime. U.S. President Barack Obama, speaking in New York, has urged members of a U.S.-led coalition to hold course in its fight against the Islamic State group, against a backdrop of growing Russian military deployments to bolster Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government. Obama said the U.S.-led coalition had grown to 60 nations with the addition of new members Nigeria, Tunisia and Malaysia, and had beaten back ISIL from a third of the terrain it once controlled in Iraq.
We have to be frank that the biggest problem we have today is the Islamist extremist violence that has given birth to ISIL, to Al-Shabaab, to Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, and so many other groups. Now, these people claim to act in the name of the Islamic religion. They don't. I can say they don't. I can say they don't over and over again. You can say they don't, but there's nothing more powerful than what, for instance, the King of Jordan has just said, when Muslim leaders and Muslim countries reclaim their religion and explain why what these people are saying is not Islam, it is a perversion of Islam. So we have to do that and to take away the building blocks of extremism that lead people to an extremist worldview that then takes them to an extremist terrorist view. That, I think, is as important as the military, political, diplomatic and other steps that we'll take as part of this vital campaign.
To tackle this problem, we need to act together. Without proper and timely sharing of intelligence, and in the absence of measures to address the grievances of young people in host countries, we as a whole will fail in this quest. Our efforts to dismantle networks of recruitment, propaganda, and finance of terrorist groups should continue. On the other hand, let us not deceive ourselves. While the foreign fighters phenomena has made the threat more visible, it is just part of the problem. There is no terrorist group, including Daesh, al-Nusra or others, that is solely formed by foreign fighters. We cannot ignore the impact of unresolved conflicts, mismanaged crises, mass displacements, and gaps of human security, intolerance, discrimination, racism, xenophobia and Islamophobia as factors that prepare the ground for violent extremism. Syria is a case in point. Failure to address the root cause emanating from the heinous and murder regime created a vacuum filled by Daesh, which turned into a pull factor for foreign terrorists from across the world.
And coming up next, U.S. First Lady Michelle Obama, actress Charlize Theron, and others speak on the importance of girls' education. Stay with us. Welcome back. Israeli air raids have hit the Gaza Strip in response to a rocket fired from the Palestinian enclave that was intercepted by the Iron Dome missile defense system. There were no reports of injuries from both the rocket fire and the Israeli raids, which the military said targeted 4 terror sites. Witnesses and Palestinian security sources said 4 training camps for Hamas's armed wing, the Yazidin al-Qassam brigades, were hit in the raids, but they were empty at the time. 3 of the camps are located in Gaza City and the 4th in the north of the coastal enclave. The Saudi-led coalition says it has seized an Iranian fishing boat in the Arabian Sea loaded with weapons destined for Shiite rebels it is fighting in Yemen. A coalition statement said the vessel was intercepted on Saturday and that 14 Iranians and weapons, including anti-tank shells, were found on board. It said that papers found on board of the boat showed it was registered to an Iranian and was licensed for fishing by the Iranian authorities. Saudi Arabia and its coalition allies have repeatedly accused their Shiite rival Iran of arming the Houthi rebels who control swaths of Yemen, including the capital. But despite operating an air and sea blockade for the past 6 months, they have not previously come up with any evidence. Moving on to Europe, migrants trying to enter France from Italy were involved in a standoff with the police at the border after the authorities cleared a makeshift camp on the coastal road. The Facebook page set up by activists in support of the migrants camped near the Italian town of Ventimiglia said some had jumped into the sea in protest and all of them had retreated to the rocks on the edge of the Mediterranean. And still on the issue, Hungary's foreign minister rejected criticism of his country's handling of migrants fleeing to Europe from war zones and said the decision to build fences on its borders was not done for fun, but to protect the European Union. Thousands of refugees cross the border daily to Hungary, hoping to travel on to Germany or Northern Europe.
One of the main reasons why Europe has not been able to find a proper answer for this challenge is that we actually don't name the challenge as it is. Because this is not a refugee crisis, this is not a migration crisis, this is a mass popular movement actually. Mass popular movement with an unlimited sources of supply of people. And then I have to tell you that this mass popular movement is consisting economic migrants, refugees, and to a certain extent, unfortunately, some foreign fighters as well. We defend our border. And then when we defend, then the critics say, why do you build fence? So if we have to comply with the EU regulations, this is the only way. You cannot defend a border which is 175 kilometers long, out of which 155 kilometers can be crossed easily with solely manpower. You know, you have to have some physical obstacle there. And you know, it doesn't make us very happy to do it. We don't do it for fun. I mean, and we have here an initiative which we will raise tomorrow on the conference convened by the Secretary General. And this initiative of ours will be about a world quota, because we understand that the major resources, or the major sources of this mass popular movement are countries which became unstable because of international political decisions.
U.S. First Lady Michelle Obama, actress Charlize Theron, and others have spoken on the importance of educating girls around the world. Mrs. Obama has made girls' schooling one of her signature issues during her husband's second term.
If I had worried about who liked me and who thought I was cute when I was your age, I wouldn't be married to the President of the United States today. So, that's amazing! That's so great!
There is nothing sexier than a smart woman. We have been told to live by a certain mold, women, especially women, and it's time to break it. And it is up to us to do that. Stop waiting for men to do that. Look in the mirror and see yourself and say, I am sexy, I am attractive, I am smart, I am intelligent, I am powerful.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a recap of our top stories. Parliament Speaker Nabi Habiri adjourns the 29th presidential election session to October 21st due to a lack of quorum. Damascus confirms that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has requested military assistance from Russia. And the Saudi-led coalition says it has seized an Iranian fishing boat in the Arabian Sea loaded with weapons destined for rebels it is fighting in Yemen. Those are your top stories for today. I'm Linda Tamim, and I wish you all a very nice evening.
القصة هي قصة المحيط السياسيين.